of a broken world, with tattered banners let your rage unfurl. Stand against tyranny that's deep and old. Power to the people, hearts burning bold. False promises and corrupt schemes rip the veil off the deadly dreams. No more silence, no more deceit. We'll take back the ground beneath our feet. Oligarchs with the greedy hands tight, central banks stealing our night's light. New world order creeping in disguise. We see through a facade and all their lies. Burn all their lies. Break right through. Break right through. Rise up, soldiers of a broken world. With tattered banners, let your rage unfurl. Stand against tyranny that's deep and old. Power to the people, hearts burning bold. False promises and corrupt schemes rip the veil off the deadly dreams. No more silence, no more deceit. We'll take back the ground beneath our feet.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Looks like my StreamYard is screwed up again right off the bat, because why wouldn't it be? So let me share something, present it, and pull it back off so that I can be in the center of the screen. Hold on one moment. Of course, why wouldn't this happen right as soon as the stream starts? So there we go. That's much better, right? All right. Well, welcome to Burn the Corporate Fiction. This evening we are going to be speaking about, well, the stuff we usually speak about, the trust indenture, the central banking system, the elite oligarchs that are taking control of all the resources and the property, making everyone hopelessly dependent upon them so that they can essentially regulate your behavior with arbitrary rule-making, statutes, codes, literal rules sometimes, right? So that's what we're going to be getting into tonight. I'm going to show you guys some what I guess I would consider misinformation, right? Or I hate to use that term because that's a establishment term, but it's just not good information. There's a lot of people out there that speak on the law, pretend like they know what they're talking about, and they really are just everything they're saying is entirely wrong because they don't know the history of law, so they don't actually understand what is being done. And that's okay. They're close, and we're going to go through some of that. And then I do want to play a video I played last night just because it's so good in case anybody missed it. It's one of the best cross-examinations of a witness I have ever seen. And yeah, and we'll just see whoever joins tonight and whatever we end up talking about. I don't know how long we're going to stream, but it's open-ended, so let's see what happens. Backstage, I have formerly Make Stupid People Famous, but now is Here I Am as his YouTube handle, and I think he's gonna perform a rendition of the I want to say national anthem. But let's bring him up, see what he's going to do here. So, how you doing tonight, bro?
Doing pretty good. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. So, what do you got for us?
Well, I'd like to play the national anthem with the ending, which your title starts with. The only reason I like to do that and cut it off is because our whole lives, brought up as children, we're told we live in the greatest nation ever. And when we grow up and go through some hardships of the tyrannical government, we find out that no, this is a corporation and it's not really.
It's modern day slavery. It's debt slavery, absolutely, which is just as much a form of slavery as any other. So, all right, well, go ahead, take it away.
All right. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the guns were bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Welcome to the land of the free and the home of the slaves.
Hey, I dig it, man. That's pretty good. The guitar playing simple, but the vocals not bad, man. Not bad at all. I practiced that up a couple times, and shit, we might have a new theme song for the channel, right?
Do something like that.
But yeah, so one of the things, let's say hi to, well, do we even have anybody chatting? We got TL Orca, Jimi Hendrix did it, he said. Okay, did he say land of the fee, home of the slave? But the reason I chose the title, I chose that specifically because fee comes from feudalism, and we literally are land of the fee, home of the slave. That couldn't be more true. That's apropos. It's we live in a neo-feudal society where municipal corporations act as feudal lords. There is no property ownership, and when you do quote unquote own your home, if you don't pay your fee, which is your property tax, right? Because you're actually just a tenant on the land somebody else is on. See, a allodial title, allodial ownership, you would never pay anybody to live there. You absolutely own that and can do whatever you want on it and with it, right? And that's just plain and simple. So if you're paying somebody to live somewhere, then you don't actually own it. And that's what's called a feudal tenure, prohibited by Wisconsin's original state constitution. So that's why I titled tonight's video, Land of the Fee, Home of the Slave. And excellent rendition there. Here I Am. Is that what you want, or do you still want to go by Make Stupid People Famous? I'm not sure.
It doesn't matter to me. Pat Rock, Pat, Here I Am, Make Stupid People Famous. Don't matter.
You said Pat Rock. All right. So good to see you. We got adorable Deb, a fellow jurist. Good to see you, Deb. Glad you made it. You're more than welcome to join if you'd like, or just listen if you want. And then we got TL Orca. Good to see you. All right. So tonight I'm going to start with this video that subscribers sent me, Gino, and we're going to pick this apart because this lady is pretty much almost completely entirely wrong. But I'm going to let it play through once so you guys can get glossed over with how, factual it sounds with all, because she has a decent grasp of some legal concepts and terminology. So she presents it well, but it's entirely wrong. So we're going to listen to it. And as she goes through it, I'm going to explain exactly why it's wrong. So let me share this for you guys real quick. I think I need to share the actual window. So, or the tab, I mean. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and maximize that.
Because in maritime courts, corporations can only contract with other corporations. A lawyer can only represent you as a corporation. And let me ask you a question, Ann. Can your corporation run a red light?
Already wrong. We're not corporations. We're not under, well, okay. So we're under a multitude of jurisdictions. One of those jurisdictions is maritime law. That is the military territorial jurisdiction that the United States corporation uses to essentially make the entire country international waters so that they can territorially occupy the several states and turn it into a scenario of international commerce. But when you're going to court, you're not going to technically a maritime court. You're going to an administrative court because your property is being regulated. It's under administration, right? You've been taken under administration as like a ward. And so what they're bringing, well, we'll get into it. Let's continue.
No, my corporation cannot run a red light.
No. So he's giving you an affidavit of fiction because he works for a legal fiction and he's trying to get you to respond to the legal fiction.
Actually, so what they're doing, that's all wrong. See how, like, and you'll listen to this and you'll believe this lady actually knows what she's talking about. She doesn't. You're actually a trustee of an estate that they presume not to be yours. That estate is under administration. You are the trustee responsible for performing the obligations placed on the trust and also using the property of the trust in the way that is outlined by the administrators, which would be the motor vehicle code. And so what they're doing is they're issuing you a summons. That summons is compelling you to appear to answer for the septic use, to answer to the septic use for your misuse of the property. So you're literally answering to the trust itself of why you misused the property, essentially, and they get to fine and fee you for the use of it. And since it's technically yourself against yourself, they avoid the unjust enrichment clause. They're technically hiring you for a very limited period of time as a subcontractor to basically get you to deal with yourself. And you're basically you are a trustee of the trust, the constructive trust they create, and you're a trustee of the United States trust that's already been created. And they're actually fining and feeing you for the use and the misuse of the property under administration as part of a trust. It has nothing to, I mean, it has a little bit to do with corporations. The United States is a corporation. It's a federal corporation. You are enfranchised by that corporation, right? So you have an enfranchisement with that corporation. But when they're dealing with you specifically, they're dealing with you as property. The estate has been enfranchised. You are property of the estate. You are a trustee. You're chattel. You're like an indentured servant to the estate, and you're being brought to answer for your misuse of the property. And even though the estate shares the same name as you, you are not the estate. And in fact, you're not the owner, and they don't even consider you to have any other authority over the estate except for performing the obligations you're told to and using the property in the way that you're told to. So that's how that works. All right, let's go.
If he can't get you to respond to the legal fiction, he can't contract with you. In that case, what you want to do is let him commit the crime. We're going to operate on acceptance. Not that we're trying to trap him or anything. We're just trying to educate him, right? So the first thing you can ask a police officer is, excuse me, sir, are you attempting to traffic my person? And the person is the all caps corporation. Okay. And he's going to say no.
Don't ever ask a cop that. That is stupid. Just like, are you attempting to traffic my person? Well, technically, he's gonna be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, don't ever. Yeah, no, we're not doing that. But so, questions to ask the cop would be like, I need your driver's license and registration, right? And be like, well, what's the emergency? That's the very first question you should ask the cop. What is the emergency? Why have you detained me? What crime have I committed? Because you need to pin down that he's trying to enforce a contractual obligation and not what he thinks is law. He thinks the contract is law. So he thinks code, statutes, and court rules and all that, those are law to him. All of it just falls under the broad banner of law, but it's not actually law. It takes on the color of law if you're obligated to perform according to the code, which you would if you're a 14th Amendment citizen. But what you need to point out to him is that he's trying to enforce a contract. And so you start asking questions that outline the difference between a crime, right, and a breach of trust, right? Crimes require victims. Every single time there must be a victim. Okay. Common law only deals with injuries to real people. Doesn't deal with pretended offenses. That's why trusts and contracts can only be adjudicated in equity. So let's continue to listen to this chick just totally not talk about anything.
Because he doesn't know better, and that's okay. But what he's ultimately doing is he's giving you a ticket, an affidavit of fiction, and that's got a 30-day notice. You've got a choice to show up at court, right? You know that if you don't show up at court.
So what he actually did was he created an attachment to your trust by obtaining an account number, which allowed him to generate commercial paper, which he carries around with him. That's his job, right? So the court's job and the police officer's job is to create a debt. So securities can be generated using your trust account, your social security number, as the surety, as the underwriting investment account. So they need an account that's attached to your underwriting investment account. That would be your driver's license, right? Which they can obtain through your license plate. And all of that's attached to your social security number. So they're actually generating commercial paper, which is the exact same as Federal Reserve notes. Well, almost exactly the same. It's all currency, right? It's just that a traffic ticket is considered foreign currency and not to be used as legal tender, but it still only represents a debt in the same way that the Federal Reserve note merely represents a debt. It's not actually a dollar. A dollar is a measurement of Spanish silver. The Federal Reserve note represents an obligation to pay at some future date on behalf of the United States. And that Federal Reserve note is secured by the mortgage of all of your property, which we'll get into again, as we do pretty much every episode, because we have to always circle back to that. That's the whole nexus of the debt slavery, the trust indentures, that your property is being used as collateral before you even purchase it, which means that your ability to own property, also known as your estate, is what has been mortgaged, right? So he is not giving you an affidavit. That is not an affidavit. The ticket is not. Where the hell does she even think that a ticket would be an affidavit? That doesn't even make. I mean, I guess I can kind of see, like, he's saying you were going this fast, right? So that would be his affidavit complaint against you, but it's not. It's a traffic ticket. It's a security. It's commercial paper. Has a financial value, right? And it has to be secured by your Social Security account. Am I explaining this well, Pat?
Yeah, you're on dot, on cue. I mean, right. You're making easy language for people to understand.
All right, that's what I'm trying to do. So I know it can get a little confusing, and some terms, it's I understand. I forget other people might, and it's not anybody's fault other than the lawyers who obscure and occult these legal concepts and terminology behind paywalls of law schools and $1,000 law books. That's really why you don't know this stuff. So,
but you're presumed guilty, right? And you know that they're going to then sell that as a debt instrument. But what you don't know is that in every court case, they're going to open up a trust in your name. Now, did you give them permission to do that?
No, I did not.
And then what they're going to do is they're going to put 3 bonds in that trust. They're going to put a bid, a performance, and a payment bond in there. And then they're going to basically trade you through your Sesta KV trust, which you didn't even know you had.
So no, that's all true, actually. But what she's missing is understanding that the summons itself, it originally started as a subpoena. Here's the boring, dry law stuff that some people would drop off from watching while I explain it, but it's very important. Is the subpoena was created by a bishop of Salisbury, Sir Walter something, and we can look it up in a little bit. He created the subpoena after trusts first were implemented in a feudal system where the king became the supreme property owner and then gifted all the land back out to the nobles who just gave it to him. And this allowed him to regulate the use of the property, which effectively allowed him to create his own law. You're now a baron because you hold this title to this land, and a baron's duties are this. And now I can make up whatever law because I control the land. So they owned the land prior to it being registered with the king, and that could have never happened. We got into that last episode. I'll probably re-explain it this episode, but long story short, the subpoena was invented to compel a trustee to answer for his use of property that does not belong to him. Well, the subpoena is for living people. Now that every single person in the country is legally dead to the law, spilitur mortis, you have no access to real money and you cannot own property. There's nothing but literally civilly dead entities. So now they changed the subpoena to a summons, and they're summoning you to answer for your use of the property that's not yours. You're misusing it. You're not using it the way you were told to. You're not paying for the use of it. That's what all summons are, or your body even. It doesn't, because that's considered to be property under administration. It's that simple.
That's why I call necromancer. That's why I call judges necromancers, because they raise the dead through legalities. Mm-hmm. So they're necromancers. I say my honor or necromancer. They may not like it.
Necromancer. Well, I do address the judges, Your Honor, because they do hold a title of honor. Even though they're misusing their jurisdictional authority, that jurisdiction does exist, and there are people under it lawfully, actually. There are incompetents, infants, and non-compos mentis, just people who have to be under administration. So they do hold a title of honor. So you score points. How do I put this? you present yourself in a respectful and professional manner when you do address them properly, right? But you also, like I'm here by special appearance, right, to resolve this confusion. There must be confusion here because my property is not under administration, so I can't actually be in this court, but I am here to clear this matter up. I'm here by special appearance. I come before the court having been found to be living, and I am the sole heir and executor of the res defendant estate, which is not under administration. So this has to be some sort of confusion here that I want to clear up, Your Honor, right? And so you haven't been disrespectful, you haven't been combative, but you've also just destroyed any jurisdictional authority that they might have thought they had. And they have to either ignore you and steamroll forward or address the issue of the property not being under administration, because there are no courts of law in this country outside of the Federal Court of Claims, which is what they had to create to redress grievances against the corporation. They always have to leave you an out, otherwise they violate free will. It's just one of those esoteric things I try not to get into too much, but they have to do it. The same reason they did the Expatriation Act right before they did the 14th Amendment, so that you had the ability to expatriate yourself from federal citizenship that they were creating, which effectively places you under a trust indenture. As an infant, you exchange your autonomy over your estate for privileges and immunities known as civil rights. That's the federal citizen. But, all right, let's watch this lady continue to.
And they're going to make anywhere from $2 to $5 million per traffic violation. And technically, in the background, they are then selling those as debt instruments. The courts are selling them as debt instruments up to the Treasury.
That's
Okay,
right.
so they're making good money.
That's true. But see, she doesn't realize that the entirety of our economic system is founded upon debt instruments. There is no money in this country. Nobody can use money to buy anything. You can only purchase things with negotiable instruments. There is no money. So yeah, the creating the debt security is the whole point of placing the property into the trust in the first place, right? So, yeah, it's about as far as I'm going to go with this, because I don't want to poison your guys' mind with false information. But this right here is a perfect example of speaking with authority when you're wrong. And I can prove everything I've said. And if this lady ever wants to have a debate or have a conversation, I can show her what I'm talking about. And she could greatly benefit from learning the history of law and how they're able to actually do all of this in the first place. So the one other video I wanted to start with before I get into tonight's discussion is the one we watched last night, which was surprisingly, and I don't know if you had a chance to catch it, Pat, but it was, this is one of the best cross-examinations I've ever seen anybody give. And this is exactly how you should deal with them when you go to court. This is an example of somebody doing it the right way. Whoops.
To me, shout out to the person.
So it is your opinion that
All right, this video was shot to me in a DM. Shout out to the person who shot it to me. Shout out to the person, the creator who put this up. This is probably one of the best examples I've seen of a sovereign, somebody who's not bar certified, standing up for their rights. Now, I want you to really pay attention to how she's asserting her questions and how it throws everyone else off. They don't know how to deal with it. This is a textbook way of learning how to behave and a question and a hammer and to keep them going. Listen to how the judge is not being authoritative. He's being defensive. Pay attention to everybody's voice and the things that they say.
the corporation that you ticketed is within the state of New Hampshire, yes or no?
Your Honor, objection. She can't give an opinion on a legal matter.
He didn't even pass the bar. How could
All right, so right off the bat, he comes with an objection.
So a little history I learned after I showed this last night is, one, the prosecutor somehow isn't even a member of the bar, and he's prosecuting the case. And she tells him, you're not even a member of the bar, so how do you even know what you can object to and what you cannot? But secondly, which I think it's a good jab, but I also, you don't have to be a member of the bar to know the law. But she asks the corporation that issued the ticket, is it a part of the state? That's a hugely important question, right? Because they're either operating within the territory or within the jurisdiction of the state, which would be common law, or any contracts within that state, right? or they're operating under federal territorial jurisdiction, which supplies for the Article 1, Section 8 regulation of all commerce, which creates the driver's license and registration and the entire motor vehicle code. So it's a hugely important question she's asking because it makes all the difference in the world, right? If it's within the state, then how is it trying to apply federal territorial jurisdiction? That's what she's doing there. It's a very, very clever way to do it, by the way. Very simple.
Saying that she can't give an opinion on a legal matter. I believe that she's educated enough to where she can. The judge sustains it, but her answer in response to the DA was pretty good too. He didn't even pass the bar. So she's throwing in some jabs while she's doing it. Still a good job, but keep paying attention.
He give any opinions on
Objection sustained.
I don't even know how he could be my prosecutor or be up here.
Exactly.
Do you have any questions of the witness?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So you said you write tickets for the city of Keene. How many tickets per hour do you usually write?
Maybe that average amount of tickets is like 30 a day.
How much are you being paid for this appearance?
I get my normal hourly rate.
So what is that?
Ooh, that was so bad.
25.
That was so bad that she answered that. So now that's not a legitimate witness. It wasn't to begin with. We all know that. She works for the state. But this woman literally just got her to admit that she's being paid to testify against her, which is a direct, well, who's paying you? Well, the court. Well, who's bringing the charges against me? The court. What? Conflict of interest much? And why does this guy keep trying to come on? So we got MC Nemesis backstage. Last time I let you on, you said a bunch of vulgar expletives trying to get my channel taken down. Why would I let you on? That doesn't even make sense. We're going to continue with this show. All right.
$5 an hour.
$25 an hour.
Boom, and already we got action. This meter maid is so not used to being asked questions like this. She actually answered the question of how much she's getting paid to testify. That is, come on, conflict of interest. They're being paid to testify. I bet you the DA is screaming inside of his mind right now, wishing he can object, but he can't. Why? Because she's not acting like a normal public defender. She's acting like one of us, questioning the things that should be questioned that public defenders won't question.
Are you a cop or a deputized?
Oh,
Boom, we got more action. So she just admitted that she's not even a law enforcement, but is getting paid to testify. Think about the legal liability that has on the court, the executive branch, and everybody who's running the courts.
Who is the complaining party in this incident?
City of Keene.
Objection, non-responsive, that's not a human being.
Perfect objection. Perfect objection. How can the city of Keene, what is the city of Keene claiming an injury for? Well, how did I harm the city of Keene? Did I not use my property in the way that the city of Keene said that I should? Well, what gives the city of Keene a superior interest in my property if I'm not under administration, right? City of Keene cannot be a victim. The city of Keene cannot, well, okay, let's get into the real technicalities. Technically, you could steal from, say, like the treasury or something like, but still, at the end of the day, it would be the treasurer or somebody personally that would take you to common law court or to a court of equity to sue you for whatever you stole. But what she's asking right here is getting them into the exactly like the mired technicalities I'm talking about. Like, you have to clarify, what type of proceeding is this and why am I here? What exactly are you trying to enforce in order for me to pay you, right? What is it that you're enforcing here?
So is there a victim? And if so, who is it?
I object. This is the government.
Boom.
That right there was a devastating question. He said, if you couldn't hear it, I object. This is the government. Right? This is like, because what they're saying is, why is she asking these questions? It's supposed to be business as usual. You're just supposed to pay. Right? Like, who's the victim? What is the nature and cause of the charges against me? Is basically what she's asking, not in those words. And they have to answer that. You have the absolute right to know that. What's up, AM1? Says, what up, peeps? To everyone. So, all right. So the city, okay, so we've got AT being says, though isn't a person also defined as a corporation? So is a city legally a person? Yes, because person is not the same thing as a man or woman or the people. Person is short for persona. Person is a character that you adopt. Person is a role that you adopt that either you wrote if you create your own trust, or that somebody else wrote for you. But a person is only ever adopted in a trust relationship. You adopt a persona, an office, a title, right? Whether you're a trustee, an infant trustee, saddled with the obligations of an estate that is claimed to not be yours, that's a persona. Or whether you're the judge holding the office of judge or magistrate, that's a persona. These are all roles written for you to adopt in a fiction of society, because it can only ever be that, right? Common law is the only law that deals with grievances between real men and women. That's it. And there is no adoption of personas. There also is no magistrate or judge that controls the court. There's a justice of the peace, and the justice of the peace or magistrate pushes paper. That's it. They have no tribunal authority. They have no authority to determine facts or the law of the case. They are merely there to facilitate the proceeding. The jury decides everything. And if there is no jury, then the plaintiff decides everything. That's how common law works, because that's the law of sovereigns. So
she hits on another point. She says that where's the injured party? The DA goes, and he didn't get caught on the captions, but I'm pretty sure he said, this is the government. So what he's saying is that they know they're getting caught with their pants down, that this is a good question that public defenders never asked, that they're not ready for.
There has to be a victim for there to be there has to be cause, and there has to be injury. I'm not really referring to that. Well, I'm not referring to that.
So
I'm referring.
What she should have said is there has to be cause or an injury to a living man or woman for you to enforce law. So if we're not enforcing law here, what is it that you are enforcing? That would be the question.
Can I finish, please?
Oh, look at this judge being a good boy asking please. Isn't that great? How often do you see that? Why? Because she has them worried. Now pay attention to this next move right here. This move where he grabs his ear, I believe he's signaling to the DA, but pay attention and watch.
Yeah.
This goes to her motion to dismiss, I think, so I'll let her ask a couple of questions related to that. So the objection is oral for now.
So now they're trying to see if she knows what she's doing and if they have to dismiss the case. He knows that more than likely he has to dismiss it, but he's going to try to make it look good for everyone else in the courtroom.
Go ahead, Ms. Reed. Would you like to repeat the question, please?
Is there a victim in this matter, and if so, who is it?
I have no idea. I don't understand what you're asking.
Oh, this video is so great for so many reasons, because not even the meter maid understands the full ramification of the question she's asking, not the weight of the question she's asking. And it's so great because I bet you the DA and again the judge are sitting there like, oh, this is killing us. But if for those of you who know, you know the weight of the question she's asking.
Is there a victim in the matter that we're here for today?
I don't believe so.
You don't believe that there's even a...
Then what are we doing here? What are you trying to enforce? What are you trying to cause me injury for? Right? What's going on, Benji? Good to have you, man. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going? You
Not
hear me
bad,
okay?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
Nice. Cool.
Did you have anything you wanted to comment on or question or
Yeah, I
anything?
just had a general question about sort of like I don't plan to drive without a license plate or anything, like to look for any confrontation. So just curious about kind of using this knowledge to our advantage, but kind of like keeping it on the down low.
Well,
and
no,
like
here-
still insurance and keep your license plate and all that.
No, I get where you're coming from, and
Yeah.
you can use the citizen as a vehicle. But let me like sort of like in the same way that somebody would use an LLC as a commercial vehicle to conduct business, you can use the citizen as a vehicle if you establish your claim, you know, and you know how to separate yourself from that legal fiction essentially. But what you're asking is how how do I assert my right to travel while having a license plate on the and insurance and all? Well, it's smart to have insurance anyway, but
yeah, but yeah, and like have a license plate and like also I guess keep your social security number, but like not take the benefits or anything, but like
okay, quite simply, if you're driving with your car, so anything that you use any of those accounts for, you cannot assert your sovereignty. So if you're driving around with a license plate on your car and the cop pulls you over for a traffic infraction, you cannot say, oh, well, I'm traveling, right? Because you have the commercial advertising on your vehicle, on the car, right? And so he's going to be like, okay, whatever you're talking about, even if you don't give them your ID, this has been my learning curve over the years. Even if you don't give them your ID, they'll still just get the account number off of the license plate and then write you a ticket anyway. So you can't actually stand on your right to travel when you have account numbers advertised on that they can attach to, because that's the whole goal of the police officer. His entire goal is not to protect and serve you, not to help you in any kind of way. His goal is to create an attachment to your trust, to generate commercial paper, to generate debt currency for the court. The court acts as sort of they don't create the currency themselves, so they are kind of, that's the only way that they're different from a bank, is that they don't actually create the currency themselves. They outsource it to bonding companies or whoever. Well, some commercial paper they do actually generate themselves, like tickets. So I guess you could, yeah. But the whole goal is to create an attachment to your trust account in order to generate commercial paper, in order to generate securities, because that is what our entire economic system is. There is no money. What is money, Benji? You should know this by now, or even Pat, if you wanna.
Yeah, no, totally. It's just promissory notes. And,
no, but what is actual lawful money? What is that?
Oh, gold.
Yeah, that's
Silver can be used, other precious metals, but it's based off throughout history as gold as money and silver as the 10th value of gold.
100%. Sometimes maybe jewels, rubies, at certain period, but it has an inherent value, right? The currency that we use doesn't have an inherent value. It's not money, it's debt. And that debt is secured by the sweat equity of the 14th Amendment citizens, meaning the productive value of 14th Amendment citizens has been pledged as security to borrow money, which means that your property, before you've ever even bought it, before you were ever even born, that means right now with the level of debt that we have, right? The property of your great-great-great-great-grandchildren right now, any property they might acquire throughout their life has a lien on it right now. And you might not even have a girlfriend. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Totally.
That's how the economic system works.
Yeah. I think for my case personally, I'm kind of thinking of this stuff about like getting land and things like that, and like just kind of wanting to be off the radar and just seeing where everything's going in the world and just kind of wanting to be left alone. But like, I don't want to, cause any trouble with, traveling without a license plate and stuff. Like, just
the problem is with that, and I respect that, Benji, I do. And remember, in the Juris Society, that's our motto. We just want to be left alone. We're not looking to make trouble. That's why we got the performance contract in our claim. It's like, we don't want trouble, but we'll bring it to you if you come looking for it. You know what I mean? That type of thing.
Right.
But we just want to be left alone. The problem with that is they don't want to leave you alone.
Yeah.
Right? And they're not going to want to leave you alone. We're going to get into that a little bit tonight, especially with, my crypto is doing great. But they passed that Genius Act, which is just another step towards making permanent and mandatory the legal entity identification, that trapping you into that corporate fiction and digitalizing it. That's what they're moving towards now. But my crypto's doing great because of it. So,
right.
that's a glass half full, right? But seriously, I've doubled my money. It's quite nice. But so my point is that it's all about your relationship to your property. What do I teach all the time in the Juris Society? The law that you're under, or even unburden the corporate fiction, the public, is the law that you're under is determined by your relationship to your estate. What is your estate? It's essentially your right to own property and the property that you have an interest in. That comprises your estate. I define it as your personality, your labor, and your property. So your relationship to your estate determines the law you're under. So if no one is administering your estate, meaning you have not been found to be incompetent or a pauper or accepting benefits or any of that stuff, and you have absolute control of your own estate, then you're under common law, because that's natural law as applied to society. It's God's law, basically. And so even all sovereigns, independent of all other people, are under common law, which is do not violate someone else's free will. It's that simple. That's what it is. That's what it's always been. That's what it will always be. In order to have common law rights in your estate, you have to claim your estate and not be under administration. In order to have common law rights to property, you have to have absolute ownership to the property, because if you only have an equitable interest in the property, meaning the ownership is shared, meaning there's a usufructuary situation, somebody else owns it and other people use it, right? Somebody else has a superior interest and other people use it. And the person who has a superior interest gets to create regulations regarding the use of the property. And that creates all other forms of law outside of common law. So that's why they're so desperate to take control of all the resources, all the land, all the food, because if you're dependent on them, then they can control your behavior. If you're independent of them, they cannot lawfully control your behavior, right? You have to have some sort of arrangement with them where you depend on them to live in order for them to control you. My reason in saying this is if you want to buy land, this goes back to looking into the land patents. Land patent is a allodial title. There is a allodial title in this country. If anyone doubts it, I can prove it. I've proven it before. It's in Wisconsin's original state constitution. Doctrine of equal footing dictates that if it's in Wisconsin, it's in every state in the union. And that's what it was. And common law and a knowledge of common law would, of course, evidence that that would have to be the case without a king or any sort of superior sovereign. When we became free, we didn't create a new law, okay? We kept using common law that we got from England, except our status changed, our standing changed. We did not have a king anymore. We all became co-equal kings and queens, co-tenants in sovereignty, as Chisholm v. Georgia states, right? So obviously you would have the right to a allodial title to land, which is evidenced in Wisconsin's constitution. The position we find ourselves in today is that people forgot this for quite some time before we had this resurgence of awakening in people like you and I and Pat. And so during that time, while people were asleep, the attorneys have been burying and hiding and destroying allodial titles to all the property in the country. They've been putting everything in a registry, giving control and ownership over to the county, state, and federal corporations, so that you can only ever be a tenant. But if you can find that allodial title and you can claim it, you find, because in order for something to be put in the registry, according to the Torrens registry system, which we've went through in our Juris Society, and I should probably do a public show on it, but they have to do it through adjudication, which means it has to go through court. So if you trace back to where that property was put into the Torrens registry system, which is how the county now has superior interest in it, and the state and the federal corporations have superior interest in it, is that registry system, just like the Doomsday Book back with William the Conqueror. That's how the king took control of all the land to create feudalism, was registry. Registration conveys the controlling interest of whatever is being registered to whomever it's being registered with. So when you register something, you're giving it away. And then the entity that you give it away to, often the purpose of registration, gifts it back to you under certain conditions. Now that they have the superior interest in it, they can control the use of it. That's what the whole entire motor vehicle code is, a result of you giving your vehicle to the state through registration. They're like, okay, well, now that these are all our vehicles now, you're going to use them this way, right? And that's what the motor vehicle code is. So when you buy your property, you want to buy it in a state that has the best lineage of property ownership rights going back to common law, which I would say like Virginia, Pennsylvania, the 1776 countries. And even though Virginia is a straight commie state right now, their founding documents are so excellent. Like the Bill of Rights of Virginia was written by Thomas Jefferson. It says right in there, you can't deprive your posterity of the right to property, which means that what your mother did in signing your birth certificate is against the Virginia Bill of Rights automatically. Right. And it says this, I'll show you guys if I remember to tonight, but it's in the original Virginia Bill of Rights. You can find it on babel.hathi trust, right? And Babel, right? Like Babylon. That's what law is anyway. But so you want to find a lodium title. You've got to trace it back to when it was entered into the registry. Okay. And if it wasn't entered according to a court order, right? If some attorney just slipped it into the registry, that is automatically void. And you trace it back to the last deed holder of the property prior to registry, and you claim it. You're like, this is erroneous. I'm reverting all of this back to this point. I own this, and I'm claiming this allodial title that is traced back to the land patent issued by either the state or the president. So that's how you do it. So any questions regarding that, Benji?
No, that was great. I'm actually wanting to talk with my uncle. I'm going to Maine next week, and he said he has some land. And I don't know, I think it was like our great uncle that donated it to the church to be like a campground for kids. And he was saying he could probably sell me some, but I was just trying to kind of wrap my head around some of the questions I should ask him. And yeah, I think I need to put my claim on the record before doing that, like before even attempting to buy the property off him, or I'll definitely.
So there's one other option, El Piro. So we've just recently had El Piro, Theo, Mojo, and Ryan all joined us. Theo, Mojo, and Ryan are jurists, and El Piro is a great friend of the show. And what he brought up is actually the modern day way is just do what they're doing. And that's what we're talking about in the Jurist Society right now, is creating a private express trust. Fine. If they want to create this fiction for them to hold this property in, right, and then cause you to adopt a role to have an interest in the property, a role they control and can cause you to financial injury for holding, what you do is you just take your interest in the property and put it in your own common law trust. Is that what you're getting at, El Piro? Because 100% that is so it's either get the allodial title or put it in an express trust and bring it back to common law. Those are the two solutions that not only I, but several other quite knowledgeable. There was a guy, we read the book, we're going through the book in the Jurist Society right now. It's a Concise Trustee Handbook by a guy named Weiss. He was a corporate attorney that was hired by corporations to actually fight people like us. And so after he retired from that, he was like, he wrote a book and he said, you know, a lot of these guys had a good point, but they kept falling short of realizing this. All they had to do was create a private express trust. According to common law, which is protected by Article 1, Section 10, no state shall create any ex post facto law impairing the obligation of contracts, which means that if I place an automobile in a trust, or if somebody else places an automobile in a trust for me to use, and which would be ideal, that's how you actually do it. And in the trust, it says that this automobile is not to be used for commercial purposes under any circumstances whatsoever, period. And that is the primary law that governs the use of that automobile. Then they cannot enforce any statutes or codes that are commercial demanding performance from you or that automobile regarding that automobile. They can't do it because it would impair and violate your common law obligation to that common law contract. And that has been upheld for, ever since the Rockefellers and them guys. That's how they made their fortunes. That's what they did with their property. So to keep it out of the state's hands, that's how they did it. So
would that express trust just be your own name, or do you kind of make a new name?
So you just do it just like you file your claim. You create the trust. We're going to go through it in the Jurist Society. It's basically, it's a contract that you create between, and I actually recommend that we do it between us jurists, honestly, because who else knows the law and who better to trust than people we've had a connection to for quite some time now, right? So we do it amongst ourselves, the core group, the people that participate all the time. And It's a common law contract that you don't need the state's permission. It's not statutory. It's not a public trust. It has nothing to do with the government at all. And it's protected by your common law right to contract as a free and sovereign individual, which has been upheld by the Supreme Court over and over and over and over and over again, right? So they cannot create or enforce any statute or code that would violate your obligations to that common law contract. And I think that's ultimately the easiest answer to what we're trying to do. Right there. So like Alpero said, yes, assigning each other as co-trustees contract is the law, 100%, especially when it's done privately amongst free and sovereign individuals. And that supersedes all the presumptions. So anyway, do you have anything on that? Nope. Okay.
I'm good.
We'll continue with this. This is, again, the best cross-examination I've ever seen. So
Victim, but you believe, okay.
She's not.
So in case you just joined, this woman is the meter maid who issued a ticket for a violation of a parking meter, and she's being cross-examined by somebody like us. And that woman, who is like us, asked, is there a victim in this crime? No, I don't think there's a victim. Okay, then what are we doing here? That's where we're at right now.
She's not a paralegal.
Okay, and
But I don't disagree.
Hell no, the judge don't disagree. And let me tell you why. Because a paralegal or a lawyer would know better than to not ask these questions on the record. They are being asked, and she is proposing questions that are bringing real problems to the table. And they are nervous. They don't know how to respond. We need floods and floods of this kind of litigation from litigants that are pro se or sui juris. This is how you need to be questioning everything.
actually, what is the city of Keene?
And then boom, she hits him with a dynamite question, the kill shot. And let me tell you why, because they know that the city of Keene or wherever is just a municipality, which is a quasi corporation. Now they're getting into for-profit problems.
Enforcement officer that she has the capacity to answer that legal question.
I agree with the objection. That objection is sustained.
And do you have any evidence besides your claim that the meter was actually expired today? Well, that's not an evidence. She's just claiming it again.
Answering your question, anything she answers is technically evidence.
Did you hear my question? Because my question was, do you have any evidence besides your claim that?
On this, I stopped this yesterday, and that's how much I really need everybody who's listening or who listens to this in the future to realize how much these people that control the courts, they do not know the law. Listen to what this magistrate just said. So earlier in the case, it was established that she is being paid to be there. She said, how much are you being paid to be here? And the lady said, oh, my hourly wage, $25 an hour I'm being paid. So you're being paid to be a witness against me by the very people who are bringing a case against me. That was established. And now the judge just literally said, whatever she says is evidence. So they're paying somebody who the court see this is done. They're done. They're done. They're absolutely done. She has a lawsuit at this point if they continued forward. That's insane. You guys see how that's insane? Yeah. So anyway, let's continue.
The meter was actually expired.
Other evidence? I don't understand.
Was there a picture? Did you take a picture of the meter blinking, or are you just claiming that it was blinking?
I claim that it's blinking. And
But do you have any evidence other than that?
No.
Okay, no. Okay. Do you have any evidence that I was operating the car?
Doesn't matter who's operating the car. I got evidence the car was parked there. I don't understand what you're asking.
Do you have any evidence that I was operating the car?
No.
No.
See, that's what we're fighting against, how business as usual, this whole game of fleecing us has become. And she doesn't understand. You can't just cause somebody injury for no reason. You have to have an absolute just and provable cause to demand somebody to give their property to you, which even if it's Federal Reserve notes, whatever it is, you have to have a real. So how do you, so why am I even here is basically what she's saying. There's no victim. You have no proof that I was driving the car, right? Just that the car was there. You can't even really validate that the meter was expired. You're being paid to be here to testify against me. And not only are you being paid to testify against me, but also the court says whatever you say is evidence against me. So, yeah, done, over with, absolutely. So you'll watch how they try to dress it up for the people watching in the way that they dismiss us, but obviously they dismiss us. She did a fantastic job.
Do you work for a corporation?
I work for the city of Keene.
Move on, please. The objection.
All right, so if you notice right there, the camera feed stops. So if this was...
But I can prove that the city of Keene, so can Alpiro, so can any of my jurists, anybody can prove that all of these are private for-profit corporations, municipal corporations with Dun & Bradstreet numbers, with overhead and employees and everything.
Filmed by the court, they cut a part of it out because she objected and wanted to say that that was part of a municipality, which is a corporation. She's nailing it. And the fact that that part was cut out of this video shows you everything, that they don't want you to see that kind of information.
Okay, is the city of Keene a corporation?
I don't believe so.
All right, I move to strike her testimony because she's incompetent to testify, because she doesn't need to know that.
Done. And that should have been granted right away. Is the city of Keene a corporation? I don't believe so. Well, then you're an incompetent, because you don't even know who you work for, any kind of the lawful, the legal justifications that the city uses to cause financial injury against people that they claim are in violation of their, and this again gets into the origin of what is law. Well, law is quite simply don't violate somebody's free will. Now, everything else is the adjudication of some sort of contract or trust arrangement. You have to enter into those things. That is it. That is plain and simple. There's no lawyer on the planet that could argue with me about this, because I will prove them wrong. I've proven it on the show many times. And when you look at, so that's how they created feudalism. Like everybody's like, oh, well, feudalism was introduced into England in 1066 by William the Conqueror, which technically it was like 15 or 18 years after he actually invaded, but it was instituted by using common law, right? And what they did was, at common law, all of the nobles who had common law absolute allodial title of their property, for their common defense, they gave the controlling interest of their property to the king. So now the king has a superior interest in the property. Then the king gifted it back out to the nobles under title and says, now I'm going to create this whole new law of of what comes with this title and the use of my property. And that's all private law. That's all contract, technically. It's not generally considered, but that's what it is. It's all agreement. It's not actual law. You couldn't just walk up to a random person who didn't know you and enforce this, right? I guess that's the best way to put what is law. Law is, if you see a random motherfucker kill somebody else for no reason, you can go up and arrest them because that's the law, right? There was no reason they just murdered somebody. Okay, you can enforce that against anybody. Right? Feudalism, you can only apply to people who've accepted a title from you. You have to be under an agreement to be under anything other than actual law. You have to be. And when you actually know this and you know how to explain it, you can go into a court and do what she did and be like, dude, so what agreement am I under that you're trying to charge me for violating? What is that? That's inevitably the question that you would have to come to. What do you guys think that's on the panel? Am I explaining this properly, or is it still confusing?
You're doing a great job explaining it. It all makes perfect sense. It's unfortunate that the masses of the population are so divided and so brainwashed that they can't understand basic things such as common law, but slowly people are waking up to it, especially as much as the government lies to them and as much as they hate the government. and how much, it just takes just to survive. People are looking more and more into this, and I believe in the future that more masses will wake up to this, and the government's going to have to make a choice eventually that either they're going to start listening to the people, or, well, there could be multiple things. They're starting so many wars that a foreign nation or corporation is going to take over it, or the people are going to stand up and have to have a second revolution. I mean, it's getting that bad.
So what I've been able to analyze and determine based on my study of the history of law and law as it exists, and I do know what I'm talking about, and I'm not being a braggart. I'm just saying I do, right? And what I've noticed is that the reason they haven't gone full bore into the New World Order, the reason that they didn't push the COOF, the whole, the 2020 forward situation, right? The reason they didn't push that too far is because of our Second Amendment here in the United States. So I'll give you a perfect example. In Australia, you had drones flying around equipped with facial recognition to analyze the face of every driver and every pedestrian walking around, and to match that up against an information database, an LEI database, legal entity identification, to determine if they are outside of their quarantine zone. And if they were, this drone would just fly around, scan everybody's faces. If they were outside of that zone, they would send a literal SWAT team. Okay, not a SWAT, but like 5-6 squad cars and a helicopter to come get you. And I've seen there's video evidence of that, and arrest you for being outside of your quarantine zone. They did none of that here in the United States. And our Second Amendment is the only reason why. Now, the issue with that is what they're trying to do is their whole goal of everything they're even doing right now, even with why they are okay with Donald Trump, is basically they're trying to find a way to circumvent us using our armaments. That's what they're trying to do. So they're trying to blast 5G frequency, NextRad systems to make people docile, make you just accept things the way that they are. And if you haven't noticed, you've probably become more accepting of crazy stuff than you ever thought you would have been, but you just accept it. And the reason being is because they're blasting you with 5G frequencies. They are trying to manipulate us here in the States to be able to accept this New World Order digital LEI system without doing what we have the ability to do before they fully get their AI armed Skynet infrastructure of police enforcement in place. Once they get that in place, they don't care about our Second Amendment. They'll let the trash take care of itself. But right now, they're deathly afraid of us overthrowing them before they finally complete what they're trying to do. That's the truth. That's the only conclusion I can come to. And the only reason, like here in the United States during the pandemic, we weren't like Canada, we weren't like England, we weren't like Russia, we weren't like Australia, New Zealand, we weren't like any of them. You know why? Because we have guns. That's why. That's why we weren't like that. They could only push so far here in the States. And they know that. That was their beta test. They wanted to test the fences all around the world. How far we're ready to implement this New World Order with our technocracy, right, with our AI. Let's see how far we can push totalitarian measures everywhere. And they pushed it pretty far here, despite the Second Amendment, honestly. But they could only push it so far because people started to get fed up. And you'll notice all of a sudden we went to war, not we, but Ukraine went to war with Russia. And that same day, everything else vanished. That same day, you want to know the day the coup stopped? The day the coup stopped was the day that Russia invaded Ukraine. I swear to God it was. Look it up. Look up news stories. Look up what day did Russia invade Ukraine, and then look up news stories the day before and look up news stories the day after, and that shit stopped right there. Boom. Done. All of a sudden, I remember that. I'm like, oh, I remember. Shit, if I'd known that's all we had to do to cure this, right? We should have had Russia invade a long time ago. That's what I was saying. They know they can only push it so far.
I got kind of a crazy story about Second Amendment. I'm in Massachusetts, and I did the whole like gun training and everything, and they rejected my application like after paying and everything, just based on word of mouth. Like I was at this concert and I offered some kid, he was underage, something to drink, and he went and narked on me. And like, I thought he was of age. And he went and told the cops. And then I was so surprised. I got this letter that I was rejected. Couldn't get a gun license because, like, I just wanted to have one for protection because, like, this was when things were crazy about Trump. And, like, on Facebook, people were like, I'm going to kill you for voting for Trump and stuff. And, like, I knew these kids were crazy. So, yeah, just by basically word of mouth, they wouldn't let me.
Do you actually know? Well, here's an interesting thing. I'll get into that in a second. But do you know what a license actually means? Who knows what license?
Yeah, it's, well, to do something illegal, basically.
No, not illegal. Unlawful.
Well, to do with something unlawful, yeah.
Unlawful. So what they're trying to say is unlawful for you to own a firearm unless you obtain a license, or unlawful for you to carry concealed a firearm unless you obtain permission, which is a direct violation of the second, but it's not a direct violation of the Second Amendment. You want to know why? This is how crafty and clever they must and have to get. Is that the Second Amendment doesn't say anything about firearms.
Right.
What does the Second Amendment say about firearms?
Well, it says arms, right? It doesn't say firearms.
Yeah, it doesn't say anything about firearms. It talks about arms. So they created a commercial term, firearms, for 14th Amendment citizens to regulate their access, use, and ownership of this new commercial term called firearms, which is the corporate fiction reflection of real arms, right? In real life, in the real world, at common law, it's called arms, but in the commercial world, it's called firearm. That's how they're able to regulate it, just in this fiction. The whole thing is a house of cards. The guy, it's the Wizard of Oz. It's a little tiny scared man behind a big projector. That's it. And they need you to believe it long enough until they can actually get some balls behind what they're doing. And they're trying to do that with AI and drones. They want to create a mass army of killbots to be able to put down any insurrection. That way, they don't care how many guns we have. They don't have to put themselves in danger. They're not there yet, but they're close. They're close.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Has anybody filed a claim against the federal government saying that that clause or their codes on that are irrelevant to firearms because a non-living entity cannot use a firearm or an arm, so therefore, it's a violation of the Second Amendment by a breach?
No, because this is relatively new information to people. This is people like me just come out, and people like, the various people like you and Benji, and people are just now waking up to this. So no, they're not that I know of. There's never been anything initiated in the courts, but there should be, and you're absolutely right, because they're two completely different things. A firearm is not the constitutional arms. Firearms is a commercial term and a commercial fiction and a pretend jurisdiction of territorial jurisdictional authority that has resulted from the Civil War and persisted ever since. That martial law that Lincoln declared has never been lifted. That's a fact. I don't care what, it's right in the Lieber Code. It says for the Lieber Code to be lifted, it has to be done by an act of legislature or proclamation of the president. Neither thing was ever done.
That's why they can still write executive orders.
They've always, no. So okay. I used to think this too. And so it's fine. And we all learn. And so executive orders are just that is a privilege of the executor of a trust. They've always been able to do that. George Washington issued executive orders, but they've never done it to the degree that they have until after Lincoln. Right. But so when George Washington issued an executive order, it only affected federal employees and military. That's it. It didn't affect the people of the states. Right. But after they expanded their territorial jurisdiction, when you get to FDR, Franklin Delano Cripple Syphilitic Roosevelt, when he issued an executive order, it affected everyone who signed on to the 14th Amendment as federal personnel. So that's the difference. Like when George Washington said, here's an executive order, it only affected government employees and the military. That's it. It's the only people it could. Anybody under his executive authority, which would only be federal employees and the military. right? That's it. Now, with the adoption of a social security number, every single individual is a federal employee accepting deferred retirement benefits. So you're subject to mandates and executive orders. See, that's why they tried the mandate thing. Like, so technically, if you use a social security number, technically you're subject to a mandate from the president. But people weren't going for that shit, and we have the Second Amendment. That's why they stopped. That's the only reason why they stopped. I'm firmly convinced that is the only reason they stopped.
Another question. We all know that the Constitution says that, the government can't own land. And it also says that forcing into contract is construed as slavery. So if somebody comes here as an alien and they refuse to become a U.S. citizen because they don't want to sign a contract, and then they're robbed and kidnapped and beaten and thrown in a jail, wouldn't that be considered slavery? Or even worse, because they refuse to be a slave, so they're being corporal punished in masses?
Okay, so now you get into a touchy situation that touches on ICE in the current situation. So let's make no bones about it. I support the deportation of these people because, well, one, I have a family and children, and two, because that's the security system that's been set up. What they were trying to do was put such a strain on that system that it buckles the economy and basically destroys us from the inside out. Not only did they send over criminals and military-aged insurgents, but they also sent people who aren't wholly entirely dependent on the government. They didn't send successful, self-sufficient people here. They sent people who are immediately going to be a drain on the economy without putting anything into it. Okay, so originally, under common law in our original republic, is you could just be an inhabitant without having any rights of citizenship, and you could enjoy all of your natural rights as an inhabitant. You just couldn't participate in government or any kind of decision making in society. That is how it originally was. Our current situation, though, is nowhere even close to that. They've created an entire security scheme by enslaving you, your friends, your family, and everybody you know or you could know, and mortgaging your productive value to create a massive welfare safety net, okay, in order to enrich themselves, paying themselves for running this massive welfare safety net, right? And their goal was to break the safety net because it doesn't affect them. It affects you and I. Right? And you'd have to have this restructuring of debt. You'd have to have this restructuring of geopolitical power. That was the purpose of that whole situation. And as a very last line of attack, it was to be able to activate the sleeper cell of military agents that have been let into our country over the last 5 years. That's what that was all about. So, like, as much as I understand what you're saying, and I am for sovereignty and freedom and all that stuff, these people that are coming here were never free or sovereign in the first place. They do not know how to take care of themselves. They do not know how to be sovereign or free. They're coming over here for gimme this and gimme that. That's what they're coming over here for. And we have to get rid of them.
Instead of just stop giving them handouts, because as far as I knew, you had to be a...
Well, what happens when you stop giving them a handout, though, Pat? What happens? What do?
Well, if they commit a crime, then they should be locked up. But they're also,
But what happens when they get locked up, Pat?
Freedom of speech that are on visas, violating...
Costing us money. The only solution that would actually make sense is one that I won't say on the air, because you could say if they commit a crime, then done, right? And then they don't cost anybody money. They don't cost anybody money at that point, right? And then that way, okay, fine, right? But they're not going to do that. They can never float that one. They can never, that would be great. That would be a great solution to the immigration problem. Hey, listen, if they commit a crime, just done, right? Like with life type of thing, right?
Common law jurisdiction when it comes down to defending your property.
Right.
Having duels. I believe that we should have public duels. Here in Kentucky, you can still take your wife to the front porch steps of the courthouse Sunday between 11 and noon and beat her with a twig no bigger than your thumb. I mean, that's still law. You can still do that lawfully, but they took away duels after, I think, in the 40s when they rigged the voting and the town got into a shootout.
Which therein shows how they use common law against. So the reason that somebody could do that to their wife was because technically at common law, the wife, when she marries, she becomes property of the husband. So it's all about property laws. Again, it's what I get down to. And that's why they were able to exploit this system and break it apart, was because property laws, or common law in general, is just black and white. It's very hard and unforgiving, right? And so they introduce equity. But now we have equity without law. There is no law left. You know, so like, I don't advocate going back to being able to beat your wife on the church steps. No, I don't advocate. But I mean, what I advocate is finding a true balance between law and equity that we can maintain, which they have just went completely in the other direction. Now judges are God. The Bar Association is God. They can do whatever they want, deciding a case, because it's all the interpretation of a contract or trust agreement. And you're never adjudicating law. Whereas if you made it so, like, maybe at common law, like a wife just doesn't become proper, but see, then it's all biblical too. So it's just, yeah, it's one of those challenges, dude, where it's, I guess you have to do preemptive, you know, it's on the father and the woman to not choose some dude who's going to take her to the courthouse steps and beat her ass, you know, just pretty much. Right. So, but
I'm just saying, well, but you can't duel and you can't really defend your.
There's two states you can duel in, 2 states still, actually.
Yeah, but nobody ever, you know, accepts it though.
Because they don't know that you can. But you can duel in 2 states still. You can have a duel. The cops have to watch it, but you can have a duel. We'll look it up in a second. Let's watch the rest of this ass kicking that this lady gives these people.
Rule, you've asked her question, she can't answer. That's not necessarily uncommon.
She's
So that's overruled. Please continue.
Does the corporation you work for, which is the city of Keene, own the parking space in question?
I believe they do.
Well, how did they come to own it?
I have no idea.
There you go. Great question.
I agree
They
with your
come to own
motion.
it.
I'm not sure I understand how the question is relevant even to your motion.
Okay. So it is your opinion that
Look,
the corporation they ticketed.
right there, that guy, that deputy or the bailiff or whoever that was sitting at the side said, I don't even understand how the question is relevant, or how the question is relevant to your motion, right? Well, the question is absolutely relevant to my motion. How'd they come to own it? Because they can only determine how it is used if they own it. And since that is a public road, it's owned by the people, it's paid for by the people. The city of Keene, as a corporation, cannot own it. They cannot own it, but they must own it if they want to charge me a fee for parking on it. That's her whole point right there. That's her whole entire point. She nailed that shit. Oh, we got Val with us too. What's going on, Val? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, everyone? I got some questions as always.
As always.
Yeah, since yesterday, you know, the Matrix kicked me out. Literally.
They did. That was the Matrix. That wasn't me, Val. I told you that after. You thought I kicked you out. I didn't kick you out. I didn't. You just disappeared, and then you text me after, and I was like, I didn't do nothing. I thought you just left. I don't know.
No. The Matrix literally did it. So anyway, my first question, since I can, about guns. It's not even a question. It's just a statement. So once you get,
it's not a question, just a statement. Go ahead, shoot. Yeah.
You get kidnapped by pirates, right? When they kidnap you, they give you a probation, just so you can feed your dogs so they can survive, or your children if you have children.
No, it's to maximize the profit. It has nothing to do. They don't care about your dogs or your kids. It's because they get to charge you fines and fees for a period of time until you cannot meet their ridiculous requirements, and they get to lock you up and collect that also. But go ahead.
So here's the funny thing. I cannot own guns legally. I cannot.
No, you can't own. You cannot own firearms legally as a 14th Amendment citizen. You can own arms as one of the people all you want.
I mean, I cannot own legally according to them.
No, this is why you trace everything back to ownership. Who owns this property? Who tells me what I can and cannot have on this property?
No, we know that shit. So what do I do? Basically, the question is this: what do I do?
What do you mean? We've been explaining it the whole time. I have guns. Like,
Well, I dig it, but if they, if something happens, God forbid, because I have stalker, for example, okay, I have literally a fucking stalker coming into my driveway, and what if I have something, and something happens, God forbid.
So in this militarily occupied situation that we exist in, do what I do. And what I do is I make sure I can protect myself and family, which is my absolute right as a living man. And as a father and a husband, I can protect myself and my wife and my family, right? And nobody can take that right from me. But I also know that if I ever have to exercise that right, that's it. So I'm very judicious in whether or not I ever have to exercise that right. And so that's pretty much all you can do, but just do what you... The whole thing is, this is a massive corporate fiction. It's a big game of pretend, but it's a pretend with real consequences. It's a pretend with force behind it, but they don't have the lawful authority. They have what we call the de facto authority. In fact, they can do this, right? But life exists a certain way, and you have to live life a certain way. You have to be able to protect yourself. So you just do what you do and just know, I guess just pray you don't have to come across that, but be prepared to. I'd rather be able to protect my family and have to get myself out of the shit for protecting them than watching my family die. That's how I look at it.
That's obvious, but what we are dealing with is the reality, okay? I cannot go and buy one.
I just gave you the reality. That's the reality of it.
Well, I cannot go and buy one because I cannot. I have to,
you can buy one.
Well,
you ever heard of the private market? Listen.
Yes, but I have to do that, okay? So that's one thing.
Who cares? I'd rather do that. That's pretty...
No, that's a no. That's a no-brainer. That's
you want them knowing where it's at and where to come for it when they try to do the shit that they may plan on doing, right? That they want to do. They're trying to see if they can do it. That's all they. The only thing that separates what they want to do and what they are doing is they're trying to see if they can do it, and they're successful. That's why they have AI watching us all the time. They're watching this stream right now. AI is compiling this data into their whole thing, like, hey, you probably don't have a good chance at this house because this house, there's probably going to be lead answers at the door. You know what I mean? Like, so, and that's what they're doing right now. They're compiling because they want nothing less than absolute total control.
And then
so let me actually, on this note, let's stop. So this was the most fantastic cross-examination that I've ever seen. I'm going to copy and link it for anybody who would like to watch it in the chat. And if I remember, I'll put it in the description. It's not a promise, though. But
all right, I still have one more question, and I will shut up. I promise.
No, I know you do. I know you have questions. But before you ask your questions, I want you to watch something else. I want you to watch this for me real quick because I brought this up, and this was very, very apropos. It's called the agenda. Okay, I want you to see what these people intend on doing before you ask your questions. This is 100% exactly what they intend on doing.
The lust to control other human beings is a story as old as time. There's a very strong drift in the direction of globalization, of the ultimate centralization of control in the hands of unelected officials at supranational organizations.
Yep.
They want all of the resources of the world in their pocket.
The bigger picture.
Now, who can real quick and tell me why they want all the resources? Why would they want all the resources? What creates private law?
Absolute control.
Dependency. That's why people who collect welfare immediately settle their estates with the township, county, or state and become infant trustees of their own estate because they can't provide for themselves. So dependency immediately creates subserviency.
Is that an attempt is underway now to collapse liberal democracy and replace it with global technocracy.
This is a coup. They're saying we can control with rules. We don't need currency anymore. it's like an inverted prison. You are supposedly free to roam about, but everything you want to access is behind lock and key.
The potential for social control is gigantic and potentially irreversible.
They plan to commandeer land, reduce farming, and radically change the food we eat.
I hate to say it, but a reverse prison is actually one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen. If I was them and I wanted to do what they were trying to do, then yeah, instead of getting everybody to contract with you to be able to control them, instead you just take control of everything they need and force them to come to you to contract for it. Like that's what was just said. That's brilliant. That is demonically brilliant. You make it basically like you're free. You can walk around. You can do whatever you want. We're not controlling you. But if you want food, right, that's under lock and key. Now you got to come talk to me. And here's what I need for the food. That is unbelievably. I'm disgusted at how much I admire how smart that is. That's fucking brilliant. That is brilliant. That's brilliant. I got to give it to him. It's brilliant.
On the supply of electricity, and then dictate how we use it, and replace currency with a system of credits. All three strategies are built on the premise of a climate crisis caused by carbon dioxide.
I do not think there's a climate crisis, and I base that on all the evidence and the climate data sets that we build to answer questions just like that. The government is very clear that they want a catastrophic story.
There is no single science paper that proves conclusively that humans control all or most of the global climate.
Europe's mad dash towards net zero is effectively economic suicide. Politicians are purposely impoverishing ordinary people, purposely deindustrializing Europe.
It's just tremendous amount of damage in the name of saving the planet. It does make you ask, what is it we're actually saving?
So listen, Britons, English people, have been under the administration of the crown from time immemorial. So if they just claim it's in the best interest of Britons, they can do whatever they want. And the Britons have to rise up against that, but they don't have guns. They can't even own knives really at this point, or machetes or swords. So they're kind of, effed. But here in the United States, something like that would never work, because what would happen was the president would try to act like a king, or Congress would try to act like a king, and they would just do something and implement it. We'd be like, fuck you. And then when they tried to enforce it, well, I mean, so Emperor Hirohito, during World War II, or after World War II, rather, was asked, why did you not invade mainland United States? Why didn't you invade them? And he said, because behind every blade of grass, there would be an American with a gun. Well, that's not only not less true today, but is much more true. In fact, I know somebody who has a grenade launcher. I'm not going to name him, or obviously, and I plead the fifth on anybody who asks me about it, but I know somebody who has a fucking grenade launcher. Okay? You kidding me? Right? So they have to take control of the grid. That's their last-ditch effort. This is what we're going to witness now from this point forward is these corporations trying to grab resources in the United States. Everywhere else, you guys are kind of hit. I've often thought about some things, actually, I shouldn't bring up on this channel because that would probably be a criminal charge, but imagine we could set up a network of providing specific items for people in foreign countries that might help their living situation. I don't know, it could be food or any number of things, right? But, I've thought about that. Like, I'd like to be able to do that for our English and Irish and Scottish cousins, brothers, sisters, whatever you want to call them, ancestors. But here in the United States, they'd never be able to just do that. They'd never be able to just be like, hey, check it out. The world is heating up at such an exponential rate. But yeah, there's no data, but don't question it. We don't have to give you data. We're the government, right? That doesn't fly here. That never flies here. It can't fly here. In fact, if that does fly here, there's lead flying back at it, right? So that's an Go ahead.
We grew up with kids reading the anarchist cookbook, making stuff in our backyard, unlike a lot of the other people. You know, my dad was expert.
We know how to make homemade napalm around these parts, right? Yeah, exactly.
The process could cut down a tower.
Or just, we can get rid of what we need to get rid of. So what they're going to have to do here in this country, and you're going to watch a slow roll, and we need to be very observant of it, because they're going to sugarcoat the hell out of what they're trying to do, but they're going to try to take control of our land and food production and water resources. That's what's going to happen over the next 5 years. Mark my words. It is. Because it's the only way they can get this agenda to work. Let's finish it. Unless somebody had something. No? Okay.
Paving it over.
Patiently waiting.
I think what we're dealing with here is actually a global war on agriculture.
When you look at how many farms are selling up, we're walking into food shortages.
If I can switch everybody from real food to pharma food, then 100% of the agriculture industry can go through my publicly traded stocks, and I have complete control.
Yep.
This is the biggest public relations scam in the history of the world. But it's far more than that. It's a blueprint.
I need everybody, all 32 of you watching right now, and anybody who watches after, to realize that true power is control or significant interest in something that everyone else needs. That's it. They figured this out a long time ago, right? You don't have to worry about selling it. People need it. You need it, right? You don't have to give me a sales pitch on food. If I don't eat, I'm going to die, right? Same thing with clothes, water, everything. And look at that. And we can actually witness this with the monopolization, the conglomeration of all the corporate interests that have been quietly and silently taking over every industry for the last 70 or 80 years. So, you know, look at Kraft, search Kraft, and look at all the stuff that controls, right? And then they've gotten you, not only do they control the basic necessities and resources, but they've also gotten you addicted to extra things that only they make, like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, soda. You know, it'd be nice right now. You could have the world would end 5 years ago, and we're at a barbecue and somebody would be like, it'd be nice, a fucking Coke. I'd love a Coke right now, 5 years after the world ended, from these corporate psychopaths ending it, and somebody would ask for a Coke. I guarantee you that would happen. Do you guys disagree with me? What's up, Roger? How you doing?
Well, I'm on mute. Yeah, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Good, man. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Oh, yeah. I want to just throw a little wedge they threw in the door a couple hundred years ago. It's called science. If the science says it, people believe it. So they sell this stuff to you under the guise of science, which is actually just pseudoscience. And people will fund it, get behind it, teach their kids this stuff over generation.
You mean scientism, not science. Yeah. Science is experimentation. It should never be a Science is a process, not a subject. Like, so what are you doing? I'm doing science. Oh, what are you experimenting with? Right? Not like, hey, this is science. What do you mean this is science? This is an experiment? What are you experimenting with? Because science is a process. It's not a subject.
Yeah, they treat it as a subject and as a religion to a point. It's pseudoscience.
No, once you could make it a subject, then you could make it a religion by putting titles. That's what Rockefeller, these people are brilliant. So you're seeing, everybody who's watching the show, or if you're on the panel, you're seeing edges of the brilliance of the supernatural intelligence that figured out how to manipulate our psychology. So they're like, we'll say science, and then we'll show that science evidence is truth. We'll show how rain clouds are made. We'll show, evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and that whole process. We'll label these things science. You can easily prove them, but then we'll start to throw increasingly, liberal things under the banner of science, and then we'll chastise people who do not believe in, because by now everybody knows science is science, and science is leading humanity forward. So, anybody who questions science is a science denier. And so now we'll start using that terminology. It was very simple for them because they know the way our minds work. It's, you know, you throw some letters after it. It all goes back to the titles. Actually, titles is like, oh, well, this is Ryan Wells, or this is Sir Ryan Wells Esquire. Or no, that doesn't make sense. It'd be a knight and esquire at the same time. Or this is Ryan Wells Esquire, right? Or this is Sir Ryan Wells. Or, you know, and then now all of a sudden it's like, well, fucking Sir Ryan Wells told me. It doesn't matter what the fuck I tell you. After you meet me and somebody says, I'm Sir Ryan Wells, you're going to tell other people you met Sir Ryan Wells, even though you know they don't know, and you don't even fucking know who I am. You met a fucking knight. You want to tell people about it. And they know that about us. They know that about it. They enculturate it through our public school system, through our television. They enculturate that need for somebody who has accreditation and validation from the public. They need to promote and put that forward. And the controllers, the archons, these entities that know how to make this shit happen, they know that about our psychology. And so they set up a system where, like Rockefeller created a historian society. The historian society went to England to learn historical society. They went to England to learn about what they should teach and what they should not teach about history. They've changed our history so much from 1900 to 2000 that they're literally two different universes. They're two entirely different universes. In 1900, there were still many people who knew the Earth wasn't a globe, right? There were still many people who knew the electromagnetic nature of the universe. In the 1800s, the common curriculum was like Latin, Greek, philosophy. You know what I mean? Like real arts, not like modern, but real liberal arts, talking about like grammar, rhetoric, logic, music, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. That those are the real liberal arts, right? You learn all those things.
Well,
Not fucking somebody should be able to bang a goat. That's not liberal arts, right?
No.
Like, oh, he doesn't have the freedom to bang a goat. That's an abomination, actually, and his bloodline should not continue. That's how that works, you know what I mean? But go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say they've incorporated philosophy into science. Science was created by philosophy, but now they've hijacked their philosophy into science. They made it.
No, what they've done is they've labeled science as whatever anybody with a title says.
Yeah. Well, they label like shampoo and the process of making cheese and meats science. They'll say, well, the science behind.
I don't know if Corbett's gonna hit me for this. Whoops! But I gotta show this. I gotta show this from Corbett. So I gotta go. I was gonna show that, but I gotta go to Corbett report. I gotta show this to you guys. This is a perfect example about science and how people in science actually. Whoops! Report. Okay, so Corbett report. We'll bring this up. Boom! Right there he is. We'll go. We got to go to his news awards. So we're gonna go to videos. 8th annual, I think it was. Even though it came out a long time ago, they just restored his YouTube account. So
you're talking about James?
Yeah, James Corbett.
Yeah, I know him well. I like his documentary on 9/11. It was a good little show. It's hard to get a hold of it, but I got it saved.
Where the fuck is this news award? Did he take it down?
No, I just got a post from him at his last stream. He did.
No, I know.
Last live.
It's 3 months ago. No, he's
Ryan.
Was it a
Ryan?
what?
What? I have a question about birth certificate. Like you said, you have to, in order to unfile whatever, become independent from the 14th Amendment, you have to file BS papers to BS people, not people, scumbags.
Scumbags, I like that. Was a good one.
To say that you are not whatever, basically your birth certificate, fuck it, right? So we have like say I was born, for example, I don't care, where I was born. Who cares? Imagine this. Because
Right here it is.
we disprove the whole thing of the birth certificate, right? And then you like say, oh, if you're born in Russia, then you cannot be we don't know what to do with you.
The very unique issue that you have, Val, which is what I thought. No, listen. Do you want to hear my answer? It's true. You are an example. You are an example of when they say the exception is not the rule, and the rule is not the exception. You are a very rare case of somebody who is not born, that watches this channel, that is not born in the United States with evidence that you were born in one of the United States, not the federal corporation, right? And because so when you came over here, you actually only naturalized with the federal government. You're a unique challenge. We have to figure that out, and we can. I'm sure we can, but that is such a unique and rare circumstance where, like, because you have McDonald v. State, this guy, so I'll show you guys real quick. Hold on. So I found what I was looking for, by the way, in case anybody cared, but McDonald v. State, McDonald v. State is, let me find it. I had pulled it up yesterday for those idiots who came up here. And I think it was right here. Okay. All right. So what happened was this guy was convicted of, it was a crime. He was convicted of a crime. So he McDonald appealed the crime against the state. And he said one of the jurors, because it was under common law, this is from 1883. So this is just after the 14th Amendment, creation of a federal citizen, but like within such a short proximity that the difference was not widely known or even thought of. And so the guy appealed it and was like, well, that guy just moved from Germany. He didn't naturalize within the United States, right? And they were like, no, he did. He just didn't nationalize. He didn't naturalize with the federal government. He naturalized with the state. So what they said was and I'll highlight it, the evidence of bushing on his vorder, which is what they do to see if you're competent to be a juror, said that although, and that little 323 is just the paragraph mark, right? And this is superimposed onto courtlistener.com. So that's just how it came out. But it says, although he was not a citizen of the United States, he was not a citizen of the United States, he was a citizen and voter of the state. Under Section 2 of Article 2 of our state constitution, one may be a citizen of a state and yet not a citizen of the United States. This is because they are entirely different. A citizen of the state is one of we the people, who's under common law, has common law property rights, right? And has to consent to contract to be under anything other than common law, which means they just have to not violate someone else's will. A United States citizen is subject to Congress. Their estate is controlled by Congress. And as we see here, was mortgaged by Congress. The money will be worth 100 cents on the dollar because it's backed by the credit of the nation. It will represent a mortgage on all the homes and other property of all the people in the nation, which they could only do to people under their jurisdiction, which would only be United States citizens. These guys, which this German juror was not one of. He became a state citizen, so he would never have been under this, right? Though he was not a citizen of the United States, he was a citizen voter of the state, because Congress had to create its own chattel property in order to borrow against it. That was the plan the whole time. So you had this battle between good, like freedom-loving people like me, patriots, right? People like you, and greedy, cocksucking elite people who want to control everybody and do nothing and just be a god on earth, right? And because you had that battle when the creation of this country commenced, they made it very difficult for the borrowing power of the country to also be the government of the citizen. So you had all the way up until the 14th Amendment, you had state citizens, state governments, and then you had the federal government. And the federal government was composed of representatives of the state, and it was beneath both the states and the people of the states. But it was imbued with power to print and control current, or not print, but coin, because we're not supposed to be using paper as money. Paper is not money, by the way. But they were imbued with the power to coin currency. So the centralized composition of all the representative states was imbued with the power to coin currency. And it was done so because it had no citizenry of its own, or very little rather, territorial and then in the capital, but not enough to do what they've done today. And so that was a check and limit. It was a governor against the United States federal corporation from borrowing a shit ton of money. You just didn't have a federal citizen generally recognized. You didn't. That was entitled to all the same property rights. You didn't have that until the 14th Amendment. You just didn't. There was people who lived in the territories that would say we're United States enfranchisements. I can show you a shit ton of cases where we're enfranchised by the United States. We can vote regarding the federal government. Fair enough. That's fine. But there was no citizen till the 14th Amendment. But they had to create their own collateral in order to establish a central bank and then have something valuable to borrow against. So they created the federal citizen so they could borrow against your future productive value and your posterity, your children and your children's children. That is why there is a 14th Amendment, and that is why there is a federal citizen. And I'll even show you something else. If you don't believe me that borrowing against you is the only reason they created the 14th Amendment, let's look up the 14th Amendment, right? And when we look this up, what we're going to find is we go down to the Constitution annotated. And though it guarantees immunities right here, and it says everybody has life, liberty, property, it's all bullshit because it's subject to Congress. We go down here, and Section 4, for some weird reason, in the 14th Amendment to grant rights or privileges and immunities, rather, to the newly freed slaves, for some reason says the validity of the public debt of the United States shall not be questioned. What the fuck does that have to do with securing any kind of civil right or privilege or immunity? The validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law. Let's read the whole thing, right? So,
right.
Hold on. The validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. You can't question the public debt. If you are a federal citizen, if you are an infant trustee of the decedent estate of one of the people, which would otherwise be you if you weren't the infant trustee, you can't question the debt.
That's a violation of the First Amendment, which
shows the whole intention, the whole entire intention behind.
They're sneaky little bastards, aren't they, dude? They really are.
I'm sorry. Can I ask a real question? Oh, no?
Sure, shoot.
Yeah. So I will re-listen to you like 5 times. That's what I always do. But I would like to know this thing. Say I give a birth to a child right now, right? I go and give a birth and never register the child. They never know where he's born or she is, nothing. The child exists, grows up, like me. Say it's me. So how do they know, like, if I was born?
They won't know as long as you don't need a benefit from them. They'd have no idea that person.
Exactly. So my whole thing is this about the birth certificate and the whole 14th Amendment and etc. Like you're saying, I'm not one of the people of the Florida because I wasn't born here. That's bullshit because I don't have to be registered if I was born or not born here. Say my mom gave me the birth, I don't know, in Florida or not.
It's all about property ownership, Val. This is what we go over.
That's what I'm trying to figure
That's
out.
what I'm saying. Do they have the right to say that you have to provide those things to stay here because they own the property? And that depends on your fundamental knowledge of the law. That's what we talk about.
That's exactly what I'm going after, because from what I know, my case is not special. What makes my case is not special, like it doesn't even exist, because
hold on, not to detract. I want to answer these questions, and I will. But let's play some of this, and then we'll at the end of the show we'll get into your questions, because that's a whole different topic.
Is there supposed to be volume with this?
Yeah, we're not getting any on this side.
BBC 223 swirling like the tornado, the vortex of the creation. Some scumbag is eating some bullshit. No, shut up.
It's Satan.
Is everybody reading this 5x5?
There's no volume.
There's no volume?
No.
Ah, shit. Hold on.
That's all right.
Nah,
Ryan, I got to take off. I just wanted to ask you one question before I go. I really wanted to come on and ask.
Shoot.
When it comes to maritime law and the invention, the advent of clocks, and wouldn't that put us under the jurisdiction of maritime law? Because that's the whole reason we have allotted times and stuff. So is that incorporated into maritime law with your birth certificate and whatnot?
So what maritime law is technically, it's wartime law, but it's also international law, which is why it's wartime law. It's why it's wartime law. And basically what it does is when you say maritime, everything's connected by water. Everything is. Everything comes from the seas, all connected by water. So when you say maritime, you're bringing something into the jurisdiction of the law of nations. But different from the original law of nations, which was dealing with individual sovereignties regarding one another, right? The maritime law incorporates it's Roman. It's I would say it's the foundation of Roman civil law would be the best way to describe it, because it's like the law of territorial occupation of an area where you let the people mostly keep their customs, but you have this underlying jurisdiction of occupation, which is what Rome did to most of the developed world, if even all the way up to the time of Christ, because that's why the Romans were in Jerusalem or Damascus or any of the other Middle Eastern towns, is because that's what they were doing. It was maritime. It's the law of conquest, essentially, is what maritime law technically is. It's and it's in the name, Mara, M-A-R, Mars, maritime, Mars time law. And who is Mars is Ares, and who is Ares is what?
God of War.
It's the God of War. So it's best described as basically the law of military conquest, but it's associated with the sea primarily because all the way up until about the last couple hundred years, that was how conquest was achieved and maintained, was via the sea. So it would naturally be associated with the sea. But people get confused and thinking it's just the law of the sea. It's not. It's actually the law of military conquest. It's the very first underlying jurisdiction of our entire uniform commercial code system is the law of conquest. What that conquest is the private corporation, the United States, which I can prove is actually registered in England. Hold on, we'll show that real quick. Why not?
Yeah, they control all the maritime rules too. I think London has a nice chokehold on it for the most part.
So let me pull this up.
Wasn't Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 originally for the military?
So look, this is gov.uk. It's the United States of America. Overview. Let me see. So 33 9 Elms Lane, right, is the correspondence address for the United States. It's a government department. And then we can find the registration date is the damning piece of evidence here. But bear with me for a second, because it's been a while since I had navigated this before last night. So we got filing history.
It's under the people.
It's people, I think it is. Right. It's under people, beneficial owners. Okay. So one active beneficial owner. Nobody has become or ceased to be a beneficial owner during the update period, which doesn't say much because it's short, but it shows you that it was notified on July 3rd, 1776. Now, what's funny about that is it actually, and there's videos on this channel that show that it used to say July 4th, but I'm not really sure. I guess it would make sense. They'd have to do it the day before to kind of give them some sort of plausible deniability that it wasn't an entire plan to give corporate oligarchies sovereignty, but that's what I think it was. So, but anyway, my point.
It's like it's really suspicious, man. The third, like the day before the fourth.
No, it for sure was, and I know it was for a fact. Because prior to so you got common law, all relates to property ownership. Well, like when you had court in England in the feudal tenure, once the king became the supreme property, the controlling interest of the property, nobody could really enforce law except on the king's behalf. So the courts that existed borrowed a portion of his sovereignty, which is what you had in a feudal sovereignty, is that everything borrows sovereignty from one fount of sovereignty because he controls all the property. And so when the judge was in court, then as far as everyone else was concerned, it was the king sitting at the bench, unless the king was there. Well, I'm of the personal opinion that that is what they cannot abide, and that's ultimately why they created this country, to be free of the governors, the protections that were put against absolute rule of evil, which would be kings and appointed authorities. And so they created this country to become free of that. Ultimately, the government has become the corporation, right, in defiance of that principle. And they did so to be free of the Pope and the kings. That's what I truly believe that. It has to be that. So what I wanted to show you back towards the point, I think it was Roger, was it you who brought up scientism, correct?
Yeah, I brought it up. Yeah.
Well, that's actually why I brought this up. And so there was a point to this. It wasn't just an arbitrary choice. And it's pretty funny, actually. Watch.
All right.
Out in this year's Fake News Awards.
Yeah, dinosaur. That was
monsters. Jaguar. Copy nothing. No, seriously, don't copy our ad campaign, guys. You will go out of business. And Neuralink. Come on. And get the chip. Yeah, it's exactly what Klaus Schwab and the entire globalist class want to use to implement their transhuman New World Order, but Elon Musk is that cool space guy.
Right. Obviously.
And now, emerging from the depths of whatever subterranean lair he lives in the other 364 days a year, here's our host for tonight's agony, Ben Krugman!
This shit is funny. Wait till you guys see this. No. Just so Corbett doesn't try to strike me, and so he understands I'm not trying to take his work. I don't need his work, but he illustrated most spectacularly the lack of give a fuck that goes into science. That's what we're about to do, because they know it's just a tool to, they know the Bible's real, they know God's real, and they know that all this bullshit is just a tool to distract the masses while they finish setting up their AI network. Wait till you guys see who the winner of this award is. The story is literally unbelievable. I might get struck just for the story, but we'll see. Let's check it out.
I've got struck for worse or less. Sorry.
That's better. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, lords and ladies, assembled liars and sycophants, revolting reptiles and technocratic tyrants of all stripes. I've just been informed that Trump, Clinton, and Biden are now arriving at the venue, and the Zuckerborg is helping himself to some refreshments backstage. And Kamala is...
She'll make it.
Well, she might show up later. So I think we're ready to start. Thank you once again for joining us here this evening. This is the 8th annual Fake News Awards, and as you know by now, this is the only ceremony in the nauseatingly smug, gag-inducingly fake, rich-provokingly self-congratulatory award season that's actually worth watching. This is the show where we bestow the dinos.
By the way, and by some chance, if you've been living under a rock or have never heard of James Corbett, holy shit, go check him out. He has awesome information. He doesn't have the information I have. Mine's supplementary to his, but he also has information I don't have, especially regarding like various events, JFK, 9/11. I've never seen research like his at all from any other researcher. So definitely check him out.
Where we bestow the dinos of dishonor on the biggest liars in the lying dinosaur media over the course of the past year. Yes, tonight we have 5 awards to hand out to the repeaters and mockingbirds who vomited establishment-approved lies into the mouths of the unsuspecting public and bid them to swallow it. A disgusting metaphor that only begins to do justice to the disgusting nature of the fake news disinformation that these toadies to the technocrats and establishment favor-currying journalists are inflicting on all of us on a daily basis. So, without further ado, I have in my hand the first dino of the evening, the fakest AI-generated garbage of the year. And the runners-up are...
Holy shit. When he shows you guys this, I want you to understand that this past editors who make 6 figures, this past publisher, this past everyone, that's how little they give a fuck about science that they put out.
Stanford professor Jeff Hancock, whose biography claims he's well known for his research on how people use deception with technology, for apparently using deception with technology by citing numerous academic works that appear to have been made up by artificial intelligence software like ChatGPT. Amazon Fresh, for their Just Walk Out AI-powered cashless video surveillance system that in reality turned out to be 1,000 underpaid Indians. And Meta, for their nightmarish plan to unleash AI-generated characters, complete with profiles, backstories, and personalities, on all their garbage social media platforms. Which,
by the way, and he's about to say, but I don't know how many of you are on X, but Burn the Corporate Fiction is on X. Holy shit, are most of the accounts on X they're all bots. They're literally all bots. Like, either there's not people actually left. Like, how could you artificially inflate X over the other social media platforms, but not use real people? So it makes me wonder about the true population count of society, honestly, after the, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we're going with the census bureau crap. Yeah.
It makes me wonder. It does. I wonder about the truth because, like, there's just there's a lot. Not going to get it struck. Maybe we'll do a rumble on it, but here we go.
It quickly emerged they've already secretly been doing for years. Just ask Liv, Meta's black queer AI chatbot masquerading as a regular user, or Grandpa Brian, an African-American retired entrepreneur who was born in Harlem in 1938 to Caribbean immigrant parents, but who never actually existed. But don't worry, guys. Zuckerberg is totally based now, and he's part of that cool Tealverse thing you haven't been hearing about, so I'm sure it'll all turn out well.
And the losers are Xinyu Guo, Liang Dong, and Dingjun Hao for cellular functions of spermatogonial stem cells in relation to JAK/STAT signaling pathway. A paper that was published in the Frontiers in Cell and Development Biology journal in February, and then promptly retracted because it was in fact completely fake AI-generated garbage. The first tip-off to this report's unreliability: the AI-generated image accompanying the article depicting a rat, helpfully labeled rat, standing upright like a squirrel and sporting a massive penis.
That might have been the first clue. That may have been the first indication that that report was AI generated. Maybe. I don't know. I mean,
I'm saying I could see him, giving them a grant for a paper on this. The way the pseudoscientists work, man, they'll hand out anything.
Dude, listen, this was published. This means it went through an editor, right? It went through all the channels to end up as a publication. This happened. Wow. This is why I bring this up, scientism, right? Look at this. It says spermatogonial. So, and just that word is entirely made up. That's not a real word. Spermatogonial. But it has so many syllables that your average retard will just go, yep, that sounds about right, right? So, all right.
Yeah,
several times bigger than its own.
What?
I was saying it's science, it's not scientific.
Question. Science, bro. Yeah. Science.
Body, and not one, not two, not three, but 4 testicles. To top it off, the grotesque image was accompanied by nonsensical labels of made-up AI hallucinated gibberish words like desilst, testum cells.
No, really, read these though. That is a backward S right there. That's what that is. That's not even a letter. It's backwards, actually. So whatever the fuck that says, centaulic stem cells, distilst, retat, right? Like, but here's the sad thing, is if you just presented this to somebody, any average person on the street, they would immediately be disinterested because it was too scientific, it was too smart. That's what they would do. They just be like, I don't do science or something like that, right? Like, you wouldn't even just look at it and be like, is that a mouse? 4 testicles? Is that what you're giving me a picture of a mouse with 4 testicles? Why are you giving me a picture of a mouse with 4 testicles? Somebody said that to me, I would be like, God, thank you for renewing my faith in humanity. But the reality is, you would show this to somebody, and they would just immediately be disinterested because of words they cannot read. They wouldn't critically analyze it. They wouldn't even care. They're like, whatever that is, I'm not a scientist. Am I wrong? You guys disagree? Somebody got another opinion?
Look at the head on that thing.
And Sanctolic. As the Twitterati observed, the horrors of Figure 3, depicting some monstrous, gelatinous, AI hallucinated rendering of some vaguely cellular objects labeled with more computer-generated babble, is somehow even more horrific than the rat penis overlord. Perhaps the dino should go to the journal itself, however. Witness the retraction notice. Following publication, concerns were raised regarding the nature of its AI-generated figures. Frontiers.
Following publication, as if there is not an entire process of publication, like as if these scientific journals are just fucking just shooting them out there, just feeling like if they stick, great. If there's a problem, let us know. We'll take a look at it. That's literally their response. So we're just fucking firing these things out there. If they're, you know what I'm send them back. If you don't buy it, but if you buy it, that's science. That's fucking science, right?
I'd like to thank the concerned readers who contacted.
Right quick.
What?
Peer review. What is it?
Right. Who's a peer? Exactly. Yeah, it's the actual definition of peer is a sovereign, but like that's why you look up the genealogy of the wealthy royalty and dukes and all them right over there, the royal lineage. You look that up, it works peerage, because that's what a peer actually is. That's why we have a jury of our peers, is because, as I've said the whole time, this entire stream and every single other one, that when we declared independence, we became equal kings and queens. It could be only if the business that created this fucking article convince you that it's something else. That's the only way it's something. Go ahead.
I was saying Puritans.
Well, okay, so yeah, I mean, yeah. So it's same concept. Like they fled religious persecution, and it does all go back to the church. The church is the one. So when William the Conqueror came over and took, okay, I guess we went through the funny part of this, and I can get rid of this, and I can get into what I was actually going to talk about tonight. And what I actually was going to talk about tonight was the fact that, like, there's a lot of evidence for the millennial. Okay, it sounds crazy, so I don't want to actually say it. Sounds crazy when I say it. I'm having trouble saying it, but so you have death of Christ. They 0 BC or whatever, right? Or no, 33 AD. I apologize. So say 33 AD.
That long. Yeah.
Right. Christ is executed. Okay. He's, for pretending to be God or whatever. Like even Pontius Pilate couldn't find a reason to execute him, so he left the Jews, and the Jews said it's because he violated Jewish law. So that is what the execution comes down to, and he was executed. Okay, fantastic. Well, the first church of England was established roughly 43 AD. It was in the 40s AD. I can't remember if it was 43 or 46, but that's a fact. The first church in England was established at that time. And then for literally over 1,000 years, there's no record of law or society.
Hey Ryan, right quick before you go any further, you are a little muffled on your mic, and people are saying in the chat.
Okay, hold on. Let me try leaving.
You're getting wind or something. Yeah.
Hold on. Let me try leaving.
Ding 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 ding.
Is that better?
Yeah.
No? Yes?
Sounds fine.
Okay. Well, anyway, for 1,000 years, you literally have no record of law or society. In fact, William Blackstone, who here knows who William Blackstone is? This is actually a question I should just ask instead of citing him as if people know who he is. Who knows who William?
The name doesn't sound familiar to me personally. I don't know who he is.
Okay, one of the most well-respected jurists in modern history, even medieval history, obviously, because it was the 1700s. He wrote Blackstone's commentaries on the law of England. There's 4 books. I've read 3 of them. And I'm I've read 2 of them, partially through the third one, mostly through the third one, which it doesn't matter because the third one doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about. But the point is he was a source of inspiration for the founders of this country. Like his book, so like most colonists had a copy of the Holy Bible and Blackstone's commentaries, and that's how they conducted their lives, right? Because Blackstone was able to actually delineate the difference between common law and everything else that arose from regulation and control of property. So Blackstone's commentaries are that's one of the most important books anybody can. Absolutely. And in Blackstone's commentaries, he delineates that prior to William the Conqueror, every nobleman, every family that was a house, that was part of the constituents, that wasn't a beggar or pauper or some kind of criminal or something, but like the constituent members of that society, they all had allodial title to their property. And if you read the Bible, it verifies that the king did not just take somebody's property, as in the story of King Ahab and Jezebel. Take property. Jezebel tried a plot to allow him to take property from its subject but he could just take it because the law is the law, despite who controls commerce and business within that specific or particular area. And that's what the king's job was to regulate commerce, both internationally and domestically. That's still the only job of the government today. And so for 1,000 years, you had this absolute property ownership, and it worked perfectly fine. There was no issues until there was the invasion of William the Conqueror in 1066. And the invasion of William the Conqueror was on behalf of the Roman Catholic Church. It was. And it was basically to implement the unum sanctum and the dum diversus, which is basically that all property, all land, and all people are subject to the Roman pontiff for salvation, because the Pope holds the world in trust for Christ until his return. So everything's subject to the Pope for salvation. And that is what they spread over here. And the only way they could actually lawfully in practice put that into place was by taking control of the property. And they had to do that through conquest and obviously deception with registration. So my point in saying,
I got a question about that. Like Rome itself, they actually pretty much worship Peter. They believe he has the keys to Hades. Is that like that's heart hell belief?
Well, the two keys, yeah, to heaven and to hell. But they represent temporal and spiritual dominion, which the Catholic Church does have, actually. So that's the challenge with everything. They do have that. That's why they've been so long standing. You don't have to believe me. You're like, no, they don't. I don't believe that. I'll rebel against them for it. But here's the simple fact is that the Catholic Church, or just Rome in general, has existed for millennia before you decided that you disagree. So, and
I'm a dual citizen by religion because I was born and raised in Catholic, and I was consecrated. So I'm actually a citizen of the Vatican, I guess. Is that the way it goes from what I understand?
So you're Catholic?
Well, I was. I have been to a Catholic church since I was 12. But yeah, I was consecrated, First Communion.
And you were baptized, communion, everything?
Yep.
So yeah, you could be Catholic right now. So technically, yeah, you have a dual citizenship. How do I put this without pissing people off? People wonder why popes are not prosecuted for things. The reality is because the Pope is extrajudicial to the country. That's absolutely. So let me put it this way. When Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, do you know who actually had Abraham Lincoln assassinated? This is provable very easily.
I'm pretty sure it's not who I'm thinking of, but
it's the Catholic Church.
Huh.
And it was provable because the assassination was carried out by Mary Surratt, John Wilkes Booth, and one other guy I can never remember. And they were all Catholics, devout, right? But as if that was not evidence enough, that after Lincoln was assassinated, and actually that entire plot was a plot to kill the cabinet. It was a plot to kill Abraham Lincoln, Andrew Johnson, William Seward, the Secretary of State, and Ulysses S. Grant. That was the plot. So Ulysses S. Grant, he went to visit a sick friend. I honestly think he was in on it. So whatever. His assassin failed. Andrew Johnson, his assassin chickened out. William Seward, the Secretary of State, had a knock at his door. He answered the knock and was stabbed multiple times, and the assailant fled, and somehow William Seward lived. But you never learn that in school. You'll never learn that in school, ever. You'll never learn that in school. But that's a fact. You can look it up. William Seward almost died. The Secretary of State under Lincoln almost got killed by an assassin that was part of the plot to kill Lincoln. He almost died. He did. He did not, though. He lived. And obviously, John Wilkes Booth, met his mark. So John Surratt fled because it was very quickly discovered who did it and why. And John Surratt fled. Mary Surratt was arrested. John Wilkes Booth, well, we all know what happened to him. And the other assailant was captured. But John Surratt fled, and he fled to a monastery in Canada and was hidden. And then he was shipped over to the Pope in Rome. And then he served as a member of the Pope's Guard until somebody recognized him, turned him in, and he was extradited back here where they stacked the jury with Catholics, and he was acquitted. So he never even got in trouble. Now, the people of the United States knew who did this, and we actually cut ties, diplomatic relations with the Pope all the way until Ronald Reagan, and more specifically, all the way until Ronald Reagan got shot.
Odd, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. Then we reopened communication.
Well, Ryan, I got to leave you. I got a show to do. It's
hey, fair enough,
nice
Roger.
to talk to you, man. I appreciate that. I was just trying to originally with maritime, like because of the jurisdiction falls under a time thing. They developed the clock itself, just maritime uses. That they manipulate a lot of things with it, and that's what I was thinking. That if they control the clock, they control everything.
Well, they don't necessarily control the clock because time and space are an illusion. So that's under the dominion of the divine to control the speed of motion is essentially what time is, and space is the speed of motion. The only thing that causes the illusion of separation between you and I is the variation of electromagnetic vibrational frequency of the matter that differentiates us, and we're all at a unique signature, a mathematical signature, which is why we take shape. If we didn't have that shape, then we'd be part of the source or something inconceivable. But so it's really quite simple. The issue is when people buy into fear. Like, so what is the one tool? Well, Roger, if you have to go, by all means, have a good night.
Oh, no problem. I got a few minutes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's fear. Fear is the controlling. It's the only thing they can use. But what are you afraid of losing? Right? So it turns out, if you analyze, if you break yourself down to your, and please disagree with me if I'm wrong, but if you break yourself down to your barest bones, your ultimate self, what composes what you think is your personality? Well, I'll tell you, it's a collection of habits and beliefs based on what you believe will allow you to control your environment, to spare you pain and bring you pleasure. That's it. It's a collection of habits and beliefs designed to bring you pleasure and spare you pain. It's just a fucking obvious, innate 1 and 0 respondent algorithm, basically. Pain, pleasure. And I'm going to develop according to what I like and what I don't like. And then that's what you are. That's it. But what are you really? Well, you're not any of that. You're not your habits or your beliefs or any of that stuff. What you are is you're a silent observer in the seat of consciousness. And what you do is you realize the same you that looks yourself in the face right now. You can go look in a mirror, and the same you that's looking back at you is the same you at 7 years old, brushing your teeth in the mirror while your parents tell you it's time for bed. It's the same you. That light is the same. What's different is how you've adapted to experience based on what you perceive as pleasure and pain. But what actually brings you pain? What brings you pain is not getting what you want, losing what you have, or not being able to control your environment. That's what brings you pain. That's what you perceive as pain. But in all those times, something was taken from you that you wanted, or you thought you needed, or you needed to control. How often did that actually work out for you?
Doesn't work out most of the time, I can tell you that. But I think a lot of that's pushed on you, like what's societal norms and what they push, what your experience is. They give you the pleasure and the pain to go with it. It's offered to you. It's not necessarily you at all. I agree with you there. That's not you. It's what they made you into.
But here's the thing: what causes you pain? It's how they control you. What causes you pain?
I see where you're going with it. Well, I do have to go now. Ryan, it's been a pleasure.
Fair enough.
All right.
Yeah.
You guys have a good evening.
Yep.
All right. All right. I'll see you later.
What causes most people pain is losing what they have or not getting what they want. So that's why they're busy pumping wants through the media and controlling the supply of what they can train you to want, because they understand this is it's simple binary human nature. That's why I try to teach on this. I know it's lost on people, and some people think I'm crazy, especially if they've never even thought about it before. But what the fuck is this guy talking about? I get it. I do. But at the end of the day, independence, self-sufficiency, self-reliance, self-confidence is the only way to be. If you guys haven't realized this massive negative tentacle of fear that's just reaching up through the heads and affecting us as a society. That's all it is. It's just reaching up and filling you with doubt, fear, and thoughts of loss, hopelessness, and that's what it does. It grabs hold of you, and it makes you feel like, well, better just cooperate, because otherwise I could lose this, I could lose that. When you don't realize what you're actually sacrificing, because the whole game is built on fear. You know, what do you have to say? Do you guys got anything? Or
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I'm going to jump off here, though. I got a busy day tomorrow. And so I'm going to leave you to your guests. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you, Ryan. And I appreciate the knowledge that you have to bestow upon us. So thank
absolutely,
you.
Patrick. I appreciate you as well. I'm actually going to shut this down because I got to go to bed. But maybe I'll stream tomorrow night. Maybe not. Either way, Sunday, Jurist members convene and
Ryan, I'm gonna find you.
Well,
Oh yes, I love you. In a good way. In a
I
good way.
appreciate that. I appreciate that, Val.
Thank
All right.
you.
You guys have an excellent night, and I'll see you tomorrow.